my emoji use, the mileage hasn't really changed, but I've realized that joining a new team and all of that, I get to invent my personality again, and I've changed from like mean to like a golden lab kind of personality. I'm like a dog now, but like a friendly dog. And I be smiling all the time. I make sure to every time I react, like to a post in a group chat or something, I'm trying to
Yeah.
use a different,
Yep.
extremely specific emoji. One of my favorites is like the speech bubble with an eye inside of it. I've been getting some mileage out of that one. Let me go to the chat and actually see what else I've got.
No,
Well,
for
I
me,
know.
I've been doing
me-
the one where it's an outline of the face. The face is shaded out. The realistic eyeball one. I've been using the Space Invaders one quite a bit. The praying hands. I like that one, but that's like a classic.
to me,
Yep.
the fucking raised eyebrow emoji one is so perfect for so many different situations. It like say like
is.
It's like specifies like it like expresses like skepticism. It's kind of like the Rock like sus eyebrow thing where it's like
yeah,
it's
you
like,
hear the
look right
Vine
at
boom
Huh?
sound effect when
Yeah,
you see
yeah.
it.
Yeah, it's like the perfect like huh emoji as well.
Oh, we gotta see if we can get a custom soundboard going for this new thingy-majigger.
What we gotta do is for the thumbnail, replace all of our eyes or heads with just that emoji.
Yeah, we need to become VTubers. It needs to be a triple VTuber type podcast, I think.
One of our titles will
Yeah,
just
the
be that
VTuber
emoji.
infrastructure is apparently really sophisticated. You need to like wear mocap shit all the time.
Yeah, that would be awful. Like dots on the face and all.
Yeah,
I would not be able to do that. My dots would be like the lines would be all fucked up, and I'd come out just twisted looking.
Is VTuber that thing where you're like, it's like an anime version of you?
Yeah, it's like a 3D anime girl instead of you.
Okay, I gotta say, really high rated emojis are like the one eyebrow raise, the one.
Yeah,
yes, the shushing emoji is perfect.
Yeah, so good.
That one's great. But there's one emoji that I find has just never been able to capture the mood of what it was before. Because, like, you know, emojis are an evolved science. That shit did not happen immediately. And just like the emoticon of : some are pretty close, but truly nothing has really matched the vibe of : and it really wrecks me because that was one of my favorites, but now most things detect : and replace it with the equivalent emoji, which just is never the mood. It's not what I'm going for. I don't get it. I do get it.
Can I post pictures in the chat here?
I'm a huge fan of this emoji. This one.
Oh, you can't post pictures.
the blushing emoji.
The blushing emoji is awesome.
It's so good.
No, let me post this.
I love the like blushing with the two fingers pointing in. That one's so good. Sunglasses emoji, perfect as well.
Before the raised eyebrows, I always use a blushing with a one.
Yeah. No, this picture I just sent in the Discord. What is your favorite of the : emojis?
Shit. Let me open up.
What's
Discord
Joy
again.
Pixels?
I have no fucking
idea. Honestly, Windows probably gets it the best. I'm gonna say.
Yeah, Windows does capture like that sucks. You know,
like it's it's the least human of them in its own way, but it truly gets the droop of the mouth.
I really hate Apple's like slightly more realistic emojis for everything.
Yeah, they're kind of like 3D button emojis.
Yeah, the shading. I just hate that so much.
That is kind of stupid. You know what? Facebook had kind of a bomb ass emoji set. It's bad. It's too bad that Messenger kind of just sucks otherwise.
Yeah. I find there's one other thing with like emojis is I'm kind of an emoji purist. I know at one point they started adding like skin types for emojis.
Yeah.
And I know this is one thing where it's just like I'm never gonna get with the kids on this one. Emojis are yellow. Like that.
Yeah, that's the thing.
It's an inhuman color.
To me, the differing color emojis is the same kind of as like the Pride Progress flag, where it's like technically more inclusive, but the original was also inclusive. Like the point of the yellow emojis is that it's race neutral, you know?
Yeah. Do you remember the Facebook emojis before this one? The one which was more blobular versus like a circle.
Yeah, those were the worst.
Those are the best. Oh, I love those.
The blob ones? Oh,
They're my
those were
favorite.
disgusting.
I can't find them. I don't know how to search that.
Yeah.
Just look up Facebook emoji history. Oh, these ones. I know exactly what you're talking about. Is it the second one in this picture?
Let's see.
The best is seeing Shrey, like watching the reflection of Shrey's glasses and seeing him like desperately scrolling through more and more emoji pages, unable to find it.
Not this one. It was close to this one, except it looked, maybe when it was on a reaction to a message, it was more blobular looking versus circular. But like the base was not circular; it was like a straight line almost.
No, I think one of the emojis that has like the largest, just has kind of the strictest issue is the blushing emoji, where on Apple it looks like they're blushing, and then on Android it just looks like you shit yourself, and you're just panicking now. It looks awful. And I think that's the reason it lines up with the pointing fingers so much, is there's the thought, what was the signified is so different from the signifier for varying groups of people. You really never know what they're getting. What is this?
This is emoji timeline, but this is really weird because one of the things on the timeline that's important is Katy Perry's lyric video.
For Roar. Is that? I didn't even think that was a particularly notable song. Lyric.
Oh my god! The absolute savole of the world's first emoji set. The absolute soul in these emojis.
Some soul food.
Look at these.
Ooh.
Yep.
Damn, the guitar, the mic. These guys knew it was up. The fist bump.
This one is this emoji set.
Like old school PewDiePie, where he would just like. What would he say?
He said bro fist
into the camera.
No, this emoji set, literally perfect. We did not need to progress beyond this.
Yeah. They have... holy shit. Yo, they have Gord! Middle right.
What's that?
Oh, the guy in the hat?
Yeah.
What's the bottom one next to soccer?
Now, Spencer, when you're editing this, you're going to have to include these pictures because this is an audio medium.
Oh, shit. I should have done a share screen and just, like, put that as the video the whole time. There you go. For next time. Trey, what were you saying?
What's the next one? The one next to the soccer.
The soccer? Where's the soccer?
Was the guy on the bottom left?
Bottom left. Soccer ball. Oh, it's a guy playing a racket game or baseball.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
It looks like baseball to me. It's like it's a view from the pitcher looking at a batter, I think.
It looks like a side profile of a batter just having hit a ball.
That too.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought he was getting shot or something. That makes more sense.
But I see what perspective you're saying. It looks, yeah, I can see what you're saying, Spencer. It does also look like the batter's being viewed straight on and the ball's flying towards him. Yeah.
I guess I assumed he was a righty.
And then...
Oh, no, wait. Oh, no, it just depends, bro. Is the ballerina twisting left or right?
Yeah. It's also... I think it's a good emoji because it also captures, like, tennis as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, they have a tennis up at the top, fourth from the top right. Right above the mountain with a lake. Which is right beside the pint.
Yeah, I like how they deemed it critically important to include every single like hour on a clock in this emoji set.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense actually.
Takes up it takes up like a fifth of the emojis.
It almost feels like a lot of things for emojis feel like it's this would be so useful in a business sense or something like that, like with timing and all of that, so we need to include all the clocks, but no one ever uses the clock emojis. All you need is the general vibe of a clock emoji existing to portray the message you're trying to get across, you know?
Well, this is before you had like a lot of keys, right? Mm-hmm. So it kind of makes sense back then where you would use these. I am surprised they put finger guns as one of the emojis.
Yeah, bottom left is a little suspicious, I'll say.
I mean, it's all...
I don't know how I feel about that one, but
I do like that they do a fist side profile, but also like a fist flying towards you.
Yeah,
fist flying towards you?
It's next to the thumbs up in like the third row.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Like to communicate, like the bottom right fist is like fist bump. The fist in like the third row is like I'm punching you.
No, it's the bro fist.
Okay. Anyways, let's start the show.
Yeah. All right.
Let's get back. Yeah.
Boom. And there's like an ear-piercingly loud, high-pitched note that just sounds like distortion coming in. Yeah, that's the good shit right there. We're never gonna change it to all the haters out there.
Listen, it was custom made for us by an AI.
Exactly. All right, so first up is we got some news for nationalize, baby. We have Alberta, who privatized their healthcare. Who was talking about this again? How did the privatization of healthcare go?
Yes. So Alberta is okay. So quick couple of facts. Most people don't know this, but Alberta is one of the most public healthcare systems in Canada, where people like here in Ontario are well aware about how hospitals are all individual corporations. So every hospital is separated. They're all corporations. I was talking to some hospital people recently. They consider themselves more to be venture funds at this point, and they make a lot of their money by investing into companies as well as getting a lot of government funding. Now, Alberta's is a little bit different. So the Alberta has something called the AHS, the Alberta Health Services. And how that works is it's one centralized system, which is run by the central government or the government of Alberta, and they manage hospitals all across the province. They have, now as part of that, they have something called the APL, the Alberta Precision Labs, which is a public lab. We don't really have that much in Ontario, which is public in terms of healthcare at all. Now, recently, what happened was that they decided to go ahead and nationalize another lab service. Being one of the biggest.
Dare I even say?
The term was de-privatize. So, the rundown of what happened was that in 2014, the Conservative Party was in power in Alberta, and they wanted to. There was two types of labs in Alberta. There was a private one which worked in Edmonton and North Alberta, and then the public one which worked in Calgary and South Alberta. The PCs started to privatize everything, and they wanted to make everything private and work with a massive Australian company called Sonic.
Wait. This is Alberta, right? So is it PCs or UCP that did this?
Back then, this is PCs.
Okay.
Back in the good old days.
Then Sonic was going to be the main lab that will do everything.
Sonic?
Yeah, it's an Australian company.
You got trolled.
In 2015, the NDP won and stopped all of that bullcrap. And they went as far and said that in 2016, they canceled the entire deal with Sonic, and they started the process of nationalizing DynaLife, which is a private lab which worked in Northern Alberta. In 2019, as part of that, they were going to build something called a super lab, which is going to be one massive lab that did all the laboratory sciences stuff that the health service needed. In 2019, the UCP took over, the United Conservative Party took over. They canceled the entire deal to buy out and nationalize DynaLife. And they spent $12 million taking the super lab and destroying the entire thing and returning it to a grassy field.
Awesome.
After they did that, they started privatizing more and more. And in 2022, they made a deal where the Alberta Precision Labs is going to slow down a lot of their work, and most of it's going to be privatized by this company called DynaLife. This lasted for about 2 months until after 2 months of privatizing everything, the wait time shot up by over a month for routine blood work and routine appointments. And it got so bad that 4 months later that they decided to go ahead and re-nationalize everything. And now they're just buying out all of DynaLife altogether.
I do want to note that they're refusing to answer questions about the cost to taxpayers of all of this, which I find amazing. But yeah, it pretty much proved an instant failure. And the UCP is nationalizing what the UCP privatized because it turns out it didn't work. It does not work that way. And
What
what's
was insane
interesting
is it took 4 months for them to realize. That's it.
Yeah, it was instant. It wasn't even like, oh, a couple of years, like investment, whatever, things slowly start falling apart and like maybe people start chasing profits or whatever, and over time it gradually gets worse. It was just instant. It just got nuked. Which digs into a theory of mine, which is that the capitalists have just gotten too good. Like they're too efficient at being capitalists to keep the system going. They know that they need to push costs down. They know they need to like cut their workforce, and they know that that's how you get profits. And they know that they don't no longer need to invest into the commons or whatever and just make things better overall for their business to survive. And they're just able to instantly nuke anything that they touch for like an immediate quarterly profit, and then it vanishes.
Yeah.
I mean, what's even wilder is that within this 4 months, this includes time where it got so bad that the Alberta Precision Labs had to reopen their labs in Calgary because they shut everything down and take over a ton of the appointments back from Dynalife.
Well, what? Yeah, this is wow. You know, I feel like I should say the UCP has learned their lesson about privatizing, but I'm sure they haven't. You know,
Yeah.
I'm sure they
chance.
realized, oh wait, we accidentally destroyed one of the few things we need the government to do, and now we need to scramble to cover ourselves. But I'm sure in a month's time they'll privatize a railroad or something, and then a train will derail, and they'll have learned nothing.
I just hope the rest of the country that learns from this and nationalizes our labs. Ontario has only private labs.
It's funny. It's also like this could only happen if you're like so mystified by capitalism that you genuinely think like private industry runs things an order of magnitude more efficiently. Because if you have a nationalized service, when the government is like paying for things as they do in a single payer healthcare system, when you have like a nationalized service, the government doesn't need to like pay more than the operating cost of the service to use it, right? Like they're paying the people who work there, and they are essentially extracting the surplus value from the people who work at that place, right? They are the employers. But if it's a private concern, and then it's like some Life Labs kind of thing where it's a private company, the government has to pay the full price of something. Rather than extracting the surplus value of the people that work there, they must pay for all the profit as well. So unless you're so mystified by the free market that you think it inherently makes, you inherently think that like private industry can run things so much more efficiently, it makes no sense to privatize something the government is a monopsony for. Like this is like a healthcare lab, right? In a country with single payer healthcare, right? Like the only person buying stuff from this lab is the government, anyways. The government might as well own it.
Yeah, as well as like generally the rate of profit and all of that, you can fairly easily calculate it across different stages of things. And usually, I think what I found doing this across a few different industries that I was working through at one point is it seemed to be around every step of the way that you interact with a new market, the price goes up for at least your average costing item. I don't know how expensive things are in healthcare. For the ones I looked at, it was around 30%. So you ship things, the shipping costs for like products and stuff like that, going through it, you're adding maybe like 15%. Then it comes to a reseller. The reseller will increase the cost by about 30%. Ship it to the next person. That's another 15%. So you're getting around 30 there. And then it goes to the end user. So every kind of process involved will take up another around 30%.
Yeah.
So yeah, with healthcare, like you said, you either pay for exactly what it costs to operate the machine and pay the users, or you pay what it costs to operate the machine and pay the users as well as 30%. So for the markets to make it that much more efficient, where is that 30% savings coming from? Is it coming from a lack of bureaucracy? Well, markets, the way they do price discovery is through a bunch of like either investors lobbyists, or what are the guys called that like Trudeau got a big scandal for like paying them $1 trillion?
Consultants?
Yeah, consultancy firms and stuff like that. And those cost a bunch of money. So like, and they're a bureaucratic head, I'll say, to this. So it generally makes a larger bureaucratic mass. So where does the 30% come from? Well, you could say we're paying the workers less. Is that something you really want to be doing in healthcare?
Well, yeah, it's also like when it comes down to it, People's Republic of Walmart, one of the central points of the book, right, is that all things being equal, which I think the privatization heads don't think. So, I mean, it's not like they're being hypocrites here, but all things being equal, having a centrally planned single organism is inherently more efficient than having separate departments, like separate organisms, all autonomous from each other that engage in commerce between each other, right? Because it adds like you need to now each department needs its own lawyers, its own salesmen, its own accounting firms, etc. Whereas if you had a central organism planning everything, the overhead is inherently lower, right?
Also,
like
every
this is
contract signed is like information lost or obfuscated, plus another potential for like someone getting sued.
It's also like information generated that doesn't need to be generated. It's pointless expenditure of effort on things that shouldn't need to exist.
And I guess 2 points that I brought up, which were specifically from People's Republic of Walmart, the blue book behind me. Oh, we're not using video footage. Was that one, generally when polled, people want a choice in their healthcare. They don't want a choice in their treatment, which is two very different things. So when you ask, like, people will say, oh, the markets will bring choice to healthcare. It means like, oh, if you want a heart surgery, do you want to go to hospital X or hospital Y? They don't really care. They just want their heart surgery. But what they do want a choice in is generally like the whole process behind getting their heart surgery. And like, will they be getting the heart surgery for free or for a cost? What drugs will they be taking? Like, that they don't want to pick and choose the individual actual operation. They want a choice in the entire process to make it feel safer. And another thing that I think, Benny, you were kind of addressing is healthcare costs are really confusing because health isn't just getting an operation. It isn't just going to the doctor. Like, healthcare costs are you have an operation that needs to happen or whatever, or a checkup. And there's a ton of stuff just surrounding that. If you're going like between different drugs and just all the different decisions a doctor needs to make, adding layers of bureaucracy or market exposure to each one of those decisions makes it extremely confusing and stops people from just getting the tool that they need and figuring it out later.
Yeah. And a lot of data gets missed in this kind of situations, right? Because there's so many different moving parts which don't want to play nice with each other, that you need to centralize it. Otherwise, crucial or critical information about patient's history could be lost in the transfer.
Yeah. And everyone knows the classic case of just like, oh, the patient needs a specific drug. Yep. The nurse gives information and like says that they need this drug. The doctor does an assessment, says they need this drug. The insurance company says no. And what happens then isn't that the person doesn't take the drug and gets better or finds a more competitive drug. What happens then is the patient stays bad and then ends up eating way more cost. And this, especially for people with disabilities, what happens is they're just in the hospital system for years. And that usually costs way more than just getting the treatments done. And when you have markets, it gets confusing.
We'll also consider that, like, beyond the market thing where insurance companies don't want to pay out, the government, because it is subject to, like, democratic pressure also wants to minimize its budget expenditure.
Yeah.
So having a disabled patient consuming more over the course of 10 years is preferable to them to having a disabled patient consuming, say, 5 years worth of care in price in the course of a month and then just getting better forever, right? Because like they might not be in government in 5 years. And also like it makes their expenditure look like 1/20th the size every year or something like that, you know?
You need you need to absorb the cost long term, because to put it out now would be a story.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it would make healthcare expenditure look bigger this year or something they definitely don't want to happen.
Now, I did find one stat that said that in Ontario, 47% is done by hospital laboratories and 46% is done by private corporations. So I am interested in how this news, if at all, will impact these numbers, and if it will change the private-public makeup. I doubt it, but at least this is one case study.
He doesn't care.
I don't think it will. I mean, a core part of shock doctrine is that, like, I get from Naomi Klein's book, not like the general tactic of shock doctrine, but the idea she puts forward is that like the privatization hawks and neoliberals are waiting in the wings for a crisis to seize upon to advance their agenda. There is no like social democrat equivalent or no like communist conspiracy waiting in the wings being like, wait for this crisis to renationalize all this stuff, you know? I don't think there's like a cabal in Ottawa that's like, oh, we can blow this up in the news and uses it as an excuse to renationalize everything. Like there would be if there was some great nationalization failure that would then be used as fuel for privatization.
No, absolutely. But I think this might be used as a cautionary tale to prevent further. Like I know, for example, the reason why I say this is Manitoba used to have a national telecommunication service called the Manitoba Telecommunication Service, or the MTS.
That's crazy.
Yeah. In the 90s, they privatized it and it sold to Bell.
Yeah.
The prices shot up for everything. And in the 90s, at the exact same time, Saskatchewan was thinking about selling SaskTel, which is Canada's only truly public public telecommunication services in the provinces. And because of MTS doing so badly, SaskTel, till this date, stays public. And Saskatchewan has some of the cheaper cell phone options and internet options in Canada. So I hope this is a caution to prevent further privatization at best.
I would hope so. However, I feel like the vast majority of Canadians aren't disillusioned into thinking that private healthcare is worse. Like almost all Canadians generally say that we prefer our method of healthcare to American-style healthcare. The fact that we don't have to fear going bankrupt is huge. And I think the majority of Canadians admit that, but it's still slowly getting eaten away at anyways, because people have people can vote for a leader, but they have no real say in specific policy at the end of the day. Like any specific policy is just left to the leader, and if the leader slowly decides, oh, okay, there's a small crisis, we need to cut back on some spending, healthcare is the monster, it just slowly gets chipped away at.
And I guess one big difference between the Bell MTS situation and this one is that one was upfront, it was right to the consumer. This one you don't really notice it unless you're going to get lab services.
Well, I think I was saying that healthcare is something that's generally much more confusing than necessarily just getting one operation, and health is much bigger than that. It comes down to every aspect of life and you, which will bring us to our next little scandal of Saskatchewan with their sex ed / trans scandal. So this is a new one where schools have decided that for children to use different pronouns, they have to seek out permission from parents or guardians for anyone under the age of 16 to be called their preferred pronoun. My immediate reaction to this is just like, I know this is a big thing for kids right now. From all my friends who are teachers, it's just like, all the kids are saying how like the kids around them have to be bisexual or something.
What?
That was a huge phase for a year where like kids would go around and just be like, "You're bisexual," and the kid would be like, "What?" And then that was just the thing that kids
like,
were doing.
Was that like a joke, like a prank kids were doing, or like?
Look, it's kids. We don't know what it's like to be a kid anymore. We will never get it. And that's what I wrote. Just like, I get it. Kids like be doing shit, and we probably find it annoying. I'm assuming, guaranteed, that there are kids that are going around like changing their pronouns like every month or something like that. But like, they're kids. They're just gonna be doing their thing. Like, whatever. Stop. Just let it happen. You know, they're gonna get through it. They're gonna figure their life out when they're like 20, and you know, come around to it.
Well, I noticed like a thing where 20% of LGBTQ people are Gen Z.
Is this 20% of Gen Z identify as LGBT, or 20%?
No. 20% of LGBT people are Gen Z.
It says share of American adults who identify as LGBT by birth year.
Oh.
This is a really confusing graph, because it's like, does that mean that's 20% of Gen Z are LGBT?
Yeah, it means that. Yeah, because if you add them up, that's on 100.
Yeah.
So yeah. Huh. So yeah, 20% according to Statistica, Statista or Gallup, I guess. 20% of Gen Z are LGBTQ.
That's awesome.
The thing with the pronoun stuff is that if you're against the pronoun stuff, I feel like if you against it, you think it's like not real, right? Like you think it's fake, and the kids are just like, you know, acting out or exploring or something, and it's like bad, right?
Yeah.
To me, the worst way to go about stopping a kid from doing something is having people in authority being like, no, you shouldn't do that, you know?
Yeah.
What kids hate, though, is if they're trying to be edgy, if that's what you think they're doing in this situation. If they're trying to be edgy and everyone in authority is like, wow, that's great, and like clapping for them, that's when they'll stop doing it. If it's fake.
Start doing it yourself, and they will, if it's a phase or something like that, they will almost instantly stop it.
Yeah, exactly.
You just make it uncool. We'll come back to someone who did this soon. But yeah, so one of the things they say is, my view is the default position can't be, how do we keep this away from kids' parents? The default position should be, how do we provide students with the support so that they're comfortable and can make the decision they want to make, and like not get in the way. Well, buddy, I have one way that you could not get in the way. Doing nothing. It was already in place. You didn't do shit before. You didn't have to worry about it, and you can continue not doing shit and not worrying about it.
Now, for this graph you shared, Shrey, I would be curious if what is driving this is an increasing acceptance of the existence of like bisexuality.
That's my guess.
Yeah,
that's
right. Because it's like, you know, the whole idea of like the Kinsey scale, where everyone falls on a bisexuality spectrum from like 1 to 6.
Yep.
And then
it's the spectrumization of everything that we're kind of going through.
So I think a lot of people are like more open to the fact that if they're incidentally attracted to the opposite gender, then that's like, that would make them LGBT, because they're more bisexual than the average person.
You mean the same gender?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, a little bit of both. And there's probably just like, I really like, you know, a girl or something like that might be like, I really like guys, but girls are also cool.
Yeah.
Like girls can be attractive. And then it's like, okay, bisexual ? Sure, like whatever.
Okay, actually, I did find the numbers.
An answer that requires kind of very little actual real commitment to anything.
Yeah.
Okay, so I did find the numbers. Over half, 57% of surveyed LGBT identifying people claim to be bisexual.
Yeah. So that makes sense.
Yeah.
I did, Spencer, I really like what you talked about during the discussion on New Brunswick when they went through this kind of thing. I wonder how they're going through it right now, but you said this is a law just dedicated to bullying people? Like, there's nothing to gain from doing this, except it goes through a second step of another person who might not be supportive of this.
Yeah.
So just like a purely bullying tactic.
Yeah, it just opens up another layer of fear. Instead of a student being like, "Oh, okay, I want you to call me she now," like they need to file like paperwork. Which paperwork, like when you're an adult, you kind of learn that you can just scribble most shit away and you're fine, unless it's like a major decision. But when you're a kid, every piece of paperwork is daunting as hell, and then it gets run by your parents. Now, when something goes from the school to your parents, that is also fundamentally terrifying. Like,
even if it's good, yeah, absolutely.
Like you get your report card back, you know your grades are good, but you're still like, shit, what are my parents gonna say? What are my parents gonna think? How are they gonna react to this? Is it not good enough? Like, you just don't want any of that. You just want to go home, have home be home, be at school, have school be school, and just do all of that. And yeah. So another thing that they've done was they've allowed parents to opt their kids out of sex ed. And the reason for this was they say they want to offer more consistency, ? So they banned all third parties and made it so that you can opt out. But if you're going for consistency, why do you let people opt out? Isn't the point of consistency that everyone's getting the same education?
Do you know what it means by third party?
Planned Parenthood is banned.
Yeah, they mean, well, Planned Parenthood doesn't exist in Canada. It's like a U.S. government service, but it's like
they had Planned Parenthood, or at least someone affiliated with Planned Parenthood in their, or like a flyer related to through a third party or something
in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it was just like an information chart or something. But anything related to Planned Parenthood in any way is banned.
So like
same with anything else. Anything out of province.
Oh no, Planned Parenthood is not government. It is a non-profit. Okay.
Yeah.
For some reason I thought.
So I'm assuming they had like an infographic a teacher showed once. They're like, get this out of here.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not even sure if they actively showed it. It was just found around somewhere. So it might have just been part of their own personal resources or something, whoever was teaching.
Now, I could be wrong, but I thought, like, I remember when I was a kid, my parents had to, like, sign something or, like, write something for sex ed when I was going through it in elementary school and middle school.
It was probably just making sure that you didn't have too much sex, right? You're an attractive
guy. Oh, right.
I think in Ontario, the general controversy over sex ed usually comes from Muslim families.
Yes, a lot of religious families on the Muslim side, especially.
Yeah, I feel like Muslims are the primary like movers against sex ed in Ontario. Are there a lot of Muslims in Saskatchewan, or is this like more of a Christian thing going on?
I have a feeling it's more Christian based on the names I was reading through the article. They seemed, of a certain type.
They weren't not a lot of Al-Kanadis in there.
Not a lot of Al-Kanadis. Not a lot of Sabencers.
Yeah.
In Saskatchewan, Islam is approximately 2.3%.
Yeah.
Christianity
is 56%, and irreligion is 37%.
R/atheism, we out here.
Right. So that's about that's like a third of what it is in Ontario.
So, yeah. Here's where shit gets really good, in my opinion. This is where I started falling in love with this. When asked what experts the ministry had consulted when crafting the new policies, Duncan did not answer directly, saying that they would be consulting and researching only as they moved forwards. So, to get their information, they just made it up and are going to try to fit it to their thing later. And then when pressed on what would happen if experts and evidence point to this being the wrong decision, Duncan replied that he did not know how involving parents is wrong.
Okay.
So that's just like a dodge. And then, we're not going to be using outside third-party organizations. So it's like, you're not getting your own information. Other people who are your like points of getting information are just not allowed anymore. The NDP is kind of going after it, saying that this is like bad and is, like you brought up again, just a bullying thing and just puts people at risk. Every single rights group is saying this is bad. Outing children, this is a quote, outing children as part of a political gamble is violent and disrespectful, was in there. It violates the New Brunswick Human Rights Act, their own Education Act, and the Children's Charter of Rights from the province's Child and Youth Advocates or whatever. That's what they're saying.
Is this Saskatchewan or New Brunswick?
This one was New Brunswick, and then I think it changed to Saskatchewan, but I didn't copy everything over. So yeah, they're getting grilled for this one.
But it's Saskatchewan. They have a
the other thing is
super
that
majority.
it's like the Brad Trommel theory of cancellation, where you can only get canceled by your own side, right?
Yeah.
I feel like if the NDP pulled this move, it would be a political catastrophe because their own side doesn't like it. This seems kind of like throwing a bone to the base for the Conservative Party.
So here's some context, actually. The Saskatchewan Party had a couple of by-elections 2 or 3 weeks ago. They lost 2 seats to the NDP, which is a huge shock because the NDP never wins anything in Saskatchewan, but NDP took 2 of them. The third one, Saskatchewan Party, did win, but the number 2 party was not the NDP. The number 2 party was an upstart right-wing party, which is against COVID vaccinations and is super anti-LGBTQ.
So they are trying to recapture the base with this move.
Yes.
Which I think is also what would happen in New Brunswick. It was like throwing a bone to the... like remotivating the base, getting them back out there.
Yep, exactly. So it's literally just that. That's what happened. It's more or less just trying to recapture the base.
I am interested in seeing how, like, most conservatives, I at least personally think are motivated by just wanting to pretend that politics don't exist. They want to live in like a post-political world. And anytime something that they perceive as political exists directly in their life, they kind of lash out against it. And this is kind of something where it's like, there's 2 ways that this could go, where they could see the like existence of trans people and be like, oh, this is political, lash out against it, a la kind of reactionary types, like you were saying, remotivate that base. But I also would not be surprised if there's a large group of people who are just like, hold on a second, you're just adding paperwork to kids just doing kids shit. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to be a part of this culture war. And I want to see if that does segment the kind of right-wing parties, similar to how COVID did, where it was used to like kind of reinvigorate the base, the whole like vaccine thing, but then there was a split to the People's Party at the same time.
I hate to be crass, but I think you forgot a third group, and this is not my personal belief, but the third group is probably those who just don't care.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be the most
I guess what I was saying is those who don't care might just see that like this whole schooling thing is causing a controversy, and they just don't want to deal with more paperwork.
Well, they're just not going to see the controversy.
I think the whole point of this was to get the social, like the hard right social conservatives back on their side. Yeah. And it might backfire like abortion did for the Republican Party in the United States, but it might not. You know, I mean, one thing to consider is that there are a hell of a lot more women in the United States than there are children in Saskatchewan. So the number of people harmed by this policy is certainly much lower than the abortion restrictions in the United States. Right, so they might be able to get away with this.
The number of like trans children in Saskatchewan is probably
not high.
Like, it ain't 0, but you know we're not talking in the millions here.
Yeah.
So just to give some context on exactly what happened in the riding, Lumsden Morse, the Saskatchewan Party used to have approximately 74% of the vote in the last election, which is insane. They had 74% of it. This election, they only had 53% of the vote. But the second place was the Saskatchewan United Party with 23%, and they had 0% last time. So everyone who voted Conservative, who dropped, moved directly to the Saskatchewan United Party.
Well, okay.
Now, I'm curious, Trey. Yeah. Is the Saskatchewan United Party a Wexit party?
I think they're playing footsies with Wexit. Like, they're, super anti-Trudeau, super libertarian, super provincial, but they will never be fully outright Wexit.
Okay. They're kind of like the CAQ then.
they're closer to the UCP if you think about the UCP.
Yeah.
Well, thinking of anti-Trudeau types, Poilievre has Poilievre has a new ad about that just inflation. It's back to school shopping time. University is starting back up, I believe, this week? ? And that
Next
means
week, yeah.
that school is starting up just about this time too. I haven't been in high school for a while, so I wouldn't know. But it seems to be the season.
Starts the day after Labor Day, right?
Yep.
So sad. But yeah, so Poilievre seems to be taking on more inflation, which seems to kind of be his rallying cry still, and people still seem to be loving it. So, Shrey, what's up with this one?
Oh yeah, and make sure you cut the video into the episode here so that people know what's going on. I mean, you don't have to do the whole thing. I mean, it's literally just like it's a 2-minute video.
It is.
Right?
It is. Yeah.
You can just drop it in. I don't think they'll mind.
Honestly, this ad is brilliant. Like it's so perfect. He doesn't even speak a single word.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just playing a news clip.
Yeah, he's just playing a news clip. It's more or less the implied part of the quote. I'm not even sure if it's implied, but the implication is this is Justin Trudeau's Canada, and life sucks, right? Everything sucks, and his tagline is what I really want to get at. His tagline was for a long time, Canada's broken. And it's a fantastic tagline because to me, how it's broken might be different than you, and you might be different than the guy in Saskatchewan. But to all of us, I think it's a pretty collective consciousness now that you're right, it feels broken.
Yeah, I guess there is also kind of a mass acknowledgement that something is wrong. It's like something is clearly not working, and like people like on the right, depending how far you go, is it's like, yeah, something's not right. Like the vaccines are getting like forced on us. It's like draconian, whatever. And then people to the left are like, yeah, shit's not right. The people are like, there are these crazies out there that are like screaming and throwing hissy fits about all the vaccines. But between the two of them, they're still starting to feel like the system is like irreparably broken somehow and needs to be changed to its core. Everyone seems to be arriving at that.
And if you fight this, you're an asshole, right?
Yeah.
What are you going to say? No, Canada's great. Canada's doing well.
Well, that seems to have been the message of the Liberal Party to their detriment, is that things are going great, you know?
Mate, my yogurt costs $8.
And the thing is, for like the Liberal Party's base, things are genuinely going pretty well. I mean, the Liberal Party's base is like middle-aged homeowners, right?
Yeah.
Like economically centrist middle-aged homeowners who kind of like don't want healthcare privatized, but they don't really care about anything else. What they want most of all is for their equity to go up, which it has by a lot. For the Liberal base, the Liberal Party's administration has been a resounding success.
Yeah. I can't stop thinking about how, you know, when you're in like high school history or whatever, and all you learn is like, oh, times were bad, things were getting hectic. And that generally caused a schism where people were moving farther to the right or farther to the left, and ideology started to get a little more wacky. Like, I really feel like liberalism right now is getting left in the dust because its plan is to stand still, but standing here, like we're seeing the results of it. And there's the conservatives who at least say, hey, we're going to move to the right. NDP is kind of trying to say we're going to move to the left, but like
they're not.
They keep talking with so many numbers. Yeah, no one likes numbers. That's just so boring and lame. But yeah, I thought this ad was great because it doesn't need to really give any specifics. It's just like, we know what's going on. We know things are getting expensive. Everyone does. And it's just that sense where it's like, oh, all the people who are trying to get their kids back in school brings the kids into it. That's a classic ring. We forget what it's like to be a kid. Everyone knows what it was like, the stress of back to school shopping. It brings you back to that. Everyone's sympathetic to all of that. And it just kind of like puts the cards on the table. You can do with them what you like.
Yep. And the best part, Poilievre is not in it. And he's like fundamentally an unlikable man.
Yeah.
So they just removed the unlikable part of his message.
Yeah, and it also removes the fact that he has no reason that his policies would create a solution.
Yeah, his policies will make things worse, probably much worse.
And he does not need to do that. All he needs is to be a reaction against what it is now. I imagine Trudeau's 90% that guy's just going to run again. And if he doesn't do anything to someone who you don't have to be good, you just need to know how to stir the pot. And that's all you need. Just stir the pot, and it's just going to get people moving on their own.
Especially, as Bennett said, the Liberal and NDP reactions mainly been, no, it's good. It's pretty good out here.
I think
one tweak a button here or there, like it.
Yeah.
One fundamental problem I think the Liberals have is they're best positioned as like pseudo revolutionaries, like under the late Harper years, where they can be like, oh, if you vote us in, we'll change things. Or like Obama when in the late Bush years, he's like, oh, his whole thing was literally change. Is like his motto.
Yeah, we're gonna take on Wall Street.
With but the thing is, liberalism can't actually challenge capitalism. It's like a revolutionary ideology to bring about capitalism, to dethrone feudalism. Feudalism no longer exists and really never did in any substantial way here. So, like, when liberalism is actually in power, things won't get better. Capitalism already is in effect. It has been in effect for a long time. There's nothing what can they do? They've achieved their goal, and they're left being this revolutionary ideology that's in charge. And the only people who can position themselves as revolutionary against it are either social democrats who are never going to get the media attention that they need for that sort of thing, because obviously whoever controls the media doesn't want them to win. But also, I guess the conservatives, who are just a different type of angry or liberal, who want also capitalism, but more
market.
Capitalism as it was in a very specific point of time, 30 years ago or something like that.
Well, honestly, I think that's what that's kind of, to me, what the NDP is trying to do. It's just hey, we'll have stronger unions, and it's okay, we had stronger unions, we ended up here. Liberals are hey, let's hang out here, and everyone's yeah, but we're here. And conservatives are at least they're at least doing something new. Yeah, it's they're doing the same thing that they've always done, but at least it points to a slightly newer end goal of
it points a direction
to the right. Yeah, it points somewhere.
Yeah,
and it's somewhere that we haven't just stewed for a long time. But my favorite thing about this ad, and I think this is the best thing that Poilievre is doing, and I think this is kind of what he's figured out more than anyone else, is this again runs back to my idea that most people just really don't want to think about politics. They just want shit to be solved for them so they can go about their day. And what Poilievre is doing is he's taking Trudeau and pinning inflation, something that is real, happening, and very political, to Trudeau. And he's making Trudeau's existence he's the prime minister. He's political, but for the most part, people don't care. If he does his thing, if things go okay, whatever, he's the prime minister. But now he's someone who is a very active political part of their life. They're forced to think about Trudeau. They're forced to think about inflation. And they don't want that. He's attached to it. And I think that harms his image a lot.
No, absolutely. I mean, Pierre Poilievre has tapped into something that conservatives have done for a long time. Thatcher and Reagan were the first two big ones to do this, but this went all over the world. In Australia, they call them the battlers. In Stephen Harper's call these the Tim Horton man. Basically, people whose goal is just to live their life, go by their day, make sure their kids are okay, and make sure their parents are doing all right as well.
Yeah.
And that's what their goal is, and that's a very reasonable goal. They don't want to think about politics. They don't want to think about what could be, what may be for the world. And so for these people, they're intrinsically individualists. They're intrinsically focused on how do I get better myself. And it's a very easy thing for conservatives to tap into, because intrinsically that's what conservatives are trying to go after, the pure individualist.
Yeah.
And this ad does that perfectly.
I mean, it's the ideology that people are logical and act in their own self-interest.
Yep.
And they'll just do their thing and act best for themselves that has to happen for conservatism to work. If it doesn't, it falls apart.
Only if the illogical people get out of the way. And Trudeau is the illogical person in this scenario.
Yeah. Yeah, he's been pinned to it.
Yeah.
Well, from here, let's take our next little turn down the road over to Montreal. Now, the houses in Montreal, houses are being built, which is better than Mississauga. I think this is like episode 6 in a row of ragging on Mississauga. But
listen, it's rough out there.
So Mississauga built 2 houses. Well, 2 years ago, Montreal decided to go through a new way of getting developers to build social housing, which is fining them for not building social housing. Theoretically, that if they will like get penalized and charged for it, they will include more social housing, to dodge that. How many developers have included social housing in their buildings? Let me get an answer.
0.
0. Not a single one. And there were some fines that they just paid. And some of them, 5 of them actually, gave away a piece of their land to the city. Now, the theory is that the city can now use this money and land to develop their own affordable social housing, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not enough money and it's not enough land. They can't do it.
So literally every single case of development paid a fine or gave land.
Yes.
And there were like, what was it, like 7,000 units built or something like that?
It was a good amount.
It was several thousand, right?
Yeah.
And all of those paid the fine. And it was still not enough money to build social housing.
It was $24.5 million.
So if it was like, let's say it's like 7,000 units, because I think I remember it being something around there. Okay. They're getting like a housing unit is like that's like $1 million, right?
Yeah.
It's like to build and maintain. That's a lot of money. If it's like 7,000 units and it's like 24 million,
they're paying a few $1,000s.
Yeah. They're paying me like, I don't know, like
it's like 4,000. I think that works out too.
Yeah, something like that. 4,000 sounds right.
Or no, 8,000, something like that.
So here you go. I got it. So there were 7,100 units built since the law was put into effect. The law forced them to build social housing or pay a fine. 0 houses were built. So this came out to be approximately $3,400 per unit they had to pay in fines.
That's literally nothing. They probably incur that much in like incidental expenses, like contractors losing things.
Yeah, or like buying wood that's a little too bent from the rain. Like it's it's like rounding errors.
So this comes down to my honestly backs my housing policy proposal of you could win an election on a platform of lowering property tax for most people and racking it up to 100% for like second homes or more.
Yeah.
The fundamental error here seems to be that they didn't the fine for not building social housing should be like the value of the property. Like you have to pay like $1 million.
There's no teeth. There's no bite.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shrey, you said that they would have to build affordable housing or else.
Yeah.
And my favorite thing about this was the quote, "The bylaw is a non-negotiable social contract we have for the population." And my comment for this was, seems pretty negotiable.
Yeah, it's an additional $3,400.
Yeah, like I feel like this is not ideal. Ideally, the government would just appropriate things and build houses. Right? Mm-hmm. But if you are going to go with this fine-based solution, the fine can't be $3,800. It needs to be like hundreds of thousands of dollars or something actually punitive to these developers.
Mm-hmm.
Housing has shot up. I did take a look. So housing in April 2021 was approximately $480,000 for a house in Montreal. Currently, it's at $600,000 2 years later. Mm-hmm. So it shot up by approximately 20%.
How does that compare to the rest of the country?
Well, I mean, the rest of the country's also shot up. I don't have numbers for all of Canada.
I love the bubble. I love the bubble.
Listen, it's not a bubble if it ever pops.
You're right.
So housing has gone up 41% since this law has been put in place.
When Montreal housing groups were asked about this, they said they were not surprised. When city planners were asked about this, they said they were not surprised. Everyone saw this coming. So they're deciding that, you know how I said that they absorbed some land and got like $24 million through this? Well, guys, they have a new solution, which is to just give that money to developers in hopes that they'll start building houses.
Wait, so this is just money laundering.
Yeah.
Sorry, was that a real plan or was that just a joke?
No, that's their plan. I love it. I love it. So yeah, they're going from the negative state apparatus of we will fine you to the positive state apparatus to we'll just start giving you even more money. Look, they're just going if the more money is anything like the fines, they're just gonna keep doing the same thing. It's just not worth it.
Bennett, do you guys want to start developing houses in Montreal? Sounds like a pretty good gig.
Honestly, if we submit, we could probably do some sort of shell corporation laundering, like money laundering bullshit, and walk away with a cool couple $100,000 and build nothing. What are they going to do about it?
Yeah,
find us.
Montreal should pay developers the profit they would lose by making housing more affordable to do so, or do it themselves. A developer said. You know what? He's kind of spitting. He's kind of spitting. But yeah, it's like, what was it? Either the government is literally just paying people's profits, which, like, you know, it's kind of the neoliberal ways. You just need to pad that shit back up. Use the tax money or whatever to just, like, increase more profit. Funnel the money upwards. That's the way we go about it. Or, start social housing. I know a lot of places are kind of starting to do it. I'm feeling a comeback, baby.
So this is very recent news, but the new Minister of Housing and Infrastructure, who I was really excited about, has confirmed that for the first time in approximately 20 years, his ministry is looking at building houses again.
Hell yeah.
So we'll see what happens, but it looks like the tide's starting to shift.
Olivia Chow announcement when her approval rate needs to go up from 74%. But yeah, I can't. I'm not gonna read this in French because I can't blend words together in French. I'm not that good yet. Access logic accès logique.
Logique.
Logique. No, it's not even logique. I just read that wrong. LOGIS.
Oh, okay.
Logique. Yeah.
Logique. The province's social housing fund has only enough money to complete projects already in the works, and the Quebec government said last winter it will be replaced with a program to make them more attractive to private developers. It's literally just begging for more of the same. That's all they're doing right now. Is it's just like, damn, this failed. What if we double down on it again?
You know, between this and the entire healthcare debacle where everything is going privatized in Quebec, I'm starting to question if Quebec is truly Canada's left-wing province.
Yeah.
If not them, would it be like BC? Who's next up in the list?
Alberta just nationalized something, which is still kind of shocking to me.
But Alberta ain't, you know?
Yeah, Alberta's not the left-wing province.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess there is no left-wing province in Canada.
Where's our Eden? When will my people be free?
Look, we're gonna get the Doug Ford communist revolution. I'm feeling it.
Yeah, forget MAGA communism. I already
have a flag built.
Forget MAGA communism. How about People's Republic of Ford Nation?
Oh. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But yeah, what I was feeling about this at the end was like, you know, in the World War II wartime measures, this is also People's Republic of Walmart. That book slaps. Essentially what old capitalists would do is they'd just be like, oh, okay, the markets aren't solving the issue, so we should solve the issue now. Like, it's an issue.
Yeah.
So what they would do was wartime measures. They would just nationalize shit, solve the issue, get the shit built, and then chuck things back into kind of the private market. Essentially, keeping them in check, saying like, look, if you don't actually solve issues, you're going to get nationalized and lose everything. So that's kind of a constant threat, which forces capitalists to invest in the commons around them and solve issues that they create. And it's like, the markets failed, and the way they're going about it, they're going to fail again. They failed the last time. And it's overall failing just across the country too, with all the housing prices. And it's like, can we not get a little, just a little wartime nationalization in there? Slide that in, like Trudeau, like Castro's your dad, man. Come on, it's in your blood to nationalize shit.
I mean, Castro going communist was kind of like a situational thing he did, where it was like the conditions called for it. You know what I mean?
The president never gave him a letter back.
Yeah, so like I think in a way, Trudeau is very much like his father.
He did get the letter back,
in the sense that he's very much like his father in the sense that he acts pragmatically. He acts in kind of like he's if Castro were born into the same conditions as Trudeau, he'd become Trudeau. Yeah. I think there's definitely.
I mean, he literally did say. The thing I'm referencing to everyone is Castro at one point wrote a letter to the president of the United States, and he never got a letter back. And he said in his book that if he got a letter back, he probably just would have been a capitalist till the day he died. Like he would have loved that. And Trudeau,
he wasn't
born in different situations, actually did have political connections. He got the letter back.
Castro didn't officially embrace communism until 1961, which is like basically after he won.
2 years into his mandate.
Yeah,
he won in 59, if I remember correctly, or 59 or 60. Conversely, do you think the issue is that people keep bullying Trudeau and calling him that he's the son of Castro? So in order to get away from that, he's going harder into neoliberalism.
It could be.
Maybe
it could be. Like a reactionary thing. Okay, I thought Castro after the fact became more of a scientific socialist. I thought it was just before he was like more of a utopian communist.
I mean, I guess sort of. His ideology, I would say, wasn't necessarily concrete until like 1961, when he proclaimed himself like a Marxist.
During the war, his main thing was, "I hate corruption.
I hate Batista." That was his main thing.
Yeah. Well, okay, we're getting up there. Let's start moving along. So let's just do kind of our quick updates. So for the Greenbelt, for everyone that has not checked in previously, Doug Ford got essentially caught carving out valuable land in the Greenbelt, recently bought by developers close to the Conservative Party. And then they opened that land up for development just after through a very undemocratic process that broke the regular standard processes every step of the way. So now the staffer Amato is resigning in the wake of the Greenbelt scandal, which is kind of the minimum for accountability. It's just like one guy stepping down. Doug Ford is still saying they'll continue with their little $8.3 billion cash for land scheme, and still denying preferential treatment despite a really damning report saying that there was significant special treatment. So yeah, it neither solves the situation. The one demands that they're not doing is reversing their decision to carve out that land, nor remove all the people involved. This wasn't one person. So what I found extra nice about this, kind of reading the report, was there are 15 recommendations to stop this from happening. And 14 of them are stopping it from happening in the future. 15 is reversing the decision. Doug Ford is not doing that. But the funny thing about this was Doug Ford and the staffer and all the people involved are saying that like their way out of this is by saying that they didn't know that land was picked. So if they didn't know that the land was picked, why can't they reverse the decision for the land if it's not necessary? Why are they so adamant on it? Which brings up the question from another author. Is Doug Ford a waste man?
Oh, yes. The Toronto Star has officially referred to Doug Ford as a waste man on their actual publication, which, now, correct me if I'm wrong, don't newspapers have style guides? I didn't think you were allowed to do that.
I think, okay, so I did look into this. I don't have the author's name right here on hand, unfortunately, but I should link it. This author seems to kind of be brought in to give a specific angle on things, and I believe she's picked up kind of a black experience kind of Jamaica angle overall.
Sure.
And I think this is just unfortunately a little too how do you do, fellow kidsy.
Yeah, it wasn't just like dropped like he's a waste man, he's a waste youth, you know. It was like as the kids would call him in quotation marks, a waste man.
Yeah. Now, I have a couple quotes from this that I just thought were funny. They're back to back. The first is, "Waste man is Toronto slang, derived from Jamaican patois. That means, according to the Cambridge Dictionary, a stupid person or someone who is behaving in a stupid way." And it is followed by, "It's someone who is constant disagreement with Ontario teachers and education workers." So, if you break out the Cambridge Dictionary, I guess Doug Ford could be a waste man. But if you're using Jamaican patois slang and breaking out the Cambridge Dictionary to do it, I think you've already lost.
I like how it's very cleverly phrased in conflict with education workers, which is one way to put how you would describe waste man activities in the actual classroom.
Yeah, the real waste youths.
Yeah. That's. I mean, I guess Doug Ford is an enemy of education workers in kind of like a political and bureaucratic sense, not in the sense of he's in the classroom throwing balled up paper at the teacher.
Yeah. Oh my God, you guys. I don't know. Did you guys do public education?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, we had one of my great memories of that was having a dissection day.
Yeah.
And people were just taking organs out, wearing them as like necklaces and pretending they're chains. Someone like cut the pig head open and opened it like the bad guy from Stranger Things season 1. People were just like whipping shit at each other. It's just a nightmare.
That is waste man behavior.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was awesome.
That's not what Doug Ford is up to, I hope.
Yeah. Doug Ford back in the day probably was a waste man. Like, apparently he was a dealer, and everyone dangles that like that's a big scandal. Like, bro, he sold weed. Who cares?
Also, the Ford family is extremely mobbed up. He was probably just being like a capo or something. You know, he was in a mob.
So his highest degree is high school diploma. He dropped out of college, so he doesn't really have anything past that.
So he is kind of a waste man, actually, like a genuine one.
One last update for this piece before I let you take over, Bennett. The OPP was asked to investigate this due to a conflict of interests. They have declined respectfully and have put the matter to the RCMP. So the RCMP is now officially investigating the matter.
I see. Now, another update. Our girl, Luisa Gonzalez, did win the first round of the Ecuador election.
Yes.
So it was actually the guy who's in the mercenary. You remember that guy? Didn't even finish second.
Oh.
So I believe the results will be in for the second round in October, which is an insanely long distance for a runoff election to go. But the second place party, instead of like the insane mercenary party, was just a normal centrist party, and then the party of the guy who got assassinated came third. So the mercenary guy came fourth.
So I guess the assassination did kind of help their party. I think
it did
saying
bump
that
them.
it didn't even do that before.
Yeah, before the polling did not show any bump. It actually showed a slight decline, but he did actually end up. He ended up
Shinzo Abe tier.
No, he actually ended up getting even less than polled. I believe when we checked the polling, he had 18. He dropped even further down to 16, but that still put him in third above the mercenary, who only got 14.
Yeah.
But Gonzalez did win the first round, so we'll see what happens. Looking at the spread of which parties got what vote, it's pretty likely she'll win the second round, but it's not certain. What was the other update I wanted to do?
I think there was
Niger
something
Coup?
related to the Maui wildfires.
Oh, Maui
like
wildfires, yes.
Yeah.
So people will remember when we did the Maui wildfire coverage, a power company was tentatively being sued, and like potentially was the culprit. I'm sure that company was thinking, damn, I mean, it could have been us. Hopefully no one comes up with an incriminating video in which a power line falls on the ground and starts a fire.
That would be a shame, wouldn't it?
So a video has been released of, I think it's 10:47 p.m., day of the hurricane. It's just like a black night, like obviously heavy storm coverage into the forest. Then you see a blinding white flash as a power line goes down. and then the fire starts. So if you're still somehow invested in Maui Electric, dump your investments. If you were shorting Maui Electric, congratulations, you're about to walk away rich. It's not looking good for them.
Honestly, if you're still invested, you just gotta ride this shit out. Like, you just gotta pray for one more bump.
Now, I do think if you look very closely at the video, you might see Spencer throwing copper-covered rocks at the power line, but it's like unconfirmed.
No, I made sure to wrap my copper circled rocks with a black sock so it
honestly,
wouldn't actually show up.
I don't know if you understand how fucked Maui Electric is. Even if Spencer was on video throwing copper-covered rocks at the wire, they would still be liable because they were supposed to have turned the lines off.
Yeah, I could have perfectly fine been throwing copper-wrapped rocks at the power wires. And if that happened and I got hurt, it wouldn't have been my fault.
I mean, they would have sued you probably. I don't know if they would face charges, but
if it was supposed to be down, it wouldn't be my fault. I could have said it should have been down. This is our chance.
There was also evidence that when that exact time the blinding flashed, that the voltage did change at the houses nearby, and like that's tracked and confirmed. So it's like definitely them.
Yeah. That's the one.
So rip Bozo, rip Maui Electric, dump your stocks if you still have them.
We smoking that Maui Electric right now. We're getting zinged off of Maui Electric.
All right, any other updates that we want to cover before we move on to?
I think that was all the updates, but we have some more partially foreign news, unless Trey, you have something.
No, the last thing I was going to say was the Niger coup. Niger's still not at war with anyone. So
although, actually, they did get commitments from, I think, Burkina Faso and Mali to back them up if Nigeria invades.
And they've also forced the French ambassador to leave.
Yeah, and I know France has said they want to militarily intervene, but, I mean, that's just kind of the status quo for France in Africa. And then the U.S. actually said that they will not help either side, and they just want it resolved.
I believe Canadian troops are still there. I think Canada's going to keep their troops. They have not been asked to leave yet.
In Niger?
I believe in Niger and Mali. I think it's Mali, but I think they're just kind of staying put.
It would be crazy if Canada came out on the side of Niger. like the ECOWAS troops just fire on a Canadian base by accident, and Canada ends up on the side of Russia in the Niger conflict.
Yeah. Oopsies! I did a little fucky wucky. Well, we have some more news. Just a couple little tidbits. These were some funny articles because I went into them hoping for an absolute banger. And just a trip of an article, and then they both came out and they were just normal. But this is our last little segment, which is why are we treating them so bad? Why we doing that? And the first one is on an article with a great headline about how Ukrainians have found Toronto so bad that they're choosing to move back to Ukraine, an active war zone. And unfortunately, the article was just 40% want to do anything to stay here. Some people are just oh, maybe we'll find somewhere else. Actually, it was a good chunk. We're oh, we'll find somewhere else in Europe. And then it was a few people are moving back. The main things were just oh, they want to be home. They want their culture back, which is reasonable. But I did find some tea in here. I did some digging. So when they get to Canada, Ukrainians are given $3,000 down just to get them off their legs, or off their legs, get them hit the ground running, just to get them off, just to hit the ground running. And the landlords are doing is they're charging them multiple months rent up front, which instantly vanishes all 3,000 of those dollars and more. And then they're left like just eating ramen noodles. And it ain't good like that. It's not ideal. And I want to comment that like paying for maybe the last month's rent up front or something like that for guaranteed time or something, I can understand that. But paying for multiple multiple months rent up front is just robbery. It's just they're taking that money, they're investing it to try to double dip, and they're just making other people broke.
Especially because these guys just came from, they're refugees. That's like really messed up.
Yeah, there's I think that should be illegal. It doesn't seem right. As well as the fact that it's able to just absorb all of like, people's funds when they're struggling is just a little rude. And then the next one is Jamaicans. There were some Jamaicans at a workplace had a workplace incident. They were complaining about really bad conditions. And this is kind of the temporary foreign worker program.
Oh yeah,
which is
the old really something we should not be having, the import foreign slaves program.
We should do a deep dive on that one day. That's awful, that program.
I'd be down. But yeah, it was this one was weird because it was like, oh, some people tried to raise awareness for their worker conditions and they were all sent home early, and there's like a controversial video. But it appears that they weren't all sent home early, so it can't necessarily be ascribed to that incident, even though, sure.
Probably.
There's also no like documentation on Jamaica's side or any complaints on Jamaica's side. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, this is almost certainly happening, but the way the system is set up, we have no real documentation for it. And also I watched the video and it's clear that the employer knows that he's using these workers just to have people who are cheap and abusable labor. And he's relishing in how much power he has over them. And it's clearly not good, but that's literally what the program is. Import cheap labor to be abused and then send them on their merry way after. So I was looking at this and I thought this was going to be a much bigger scandal, but it seems that this specific one was nothing crazy beyond the temporary foreign workers being just bad.
Yeah, it's a terrible. Well, not the workers themselves. The program itself is terribly abusive.
Yeah.
It harms domestic workers. It harms the workers we import to do this. It's something that exists just so nakedly at the service of capital and nothing else.
Yeah, it's a system designed to keep wages down.
Yep.
And nothing more. It's like a disciplinary threat to labor. Anyways, that's all. I guess you guys will be getting 2 episodes this week as Ben is clickety clacking away. So yeah, thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.